wondering, why is my abstract hanging? Because you didn't obey the rule. So make sure you read. There might be some other journals that might allow more than 250, but be sure of the maximum and don't go beyond it. Now, your abstract, if you think of an imaginary line here, from here upwards, that is what everybody is going to see, whether they subscribed to that journal or not. Do you agree with me? If you don't subscribe to a journal, if you pull out an article in it, you will see the abstract. You will see the title, the authors, and all of that. It is from introduction that you will not be able to see if you haven't subscribed to it. And that is telling you that you need to construct your abstract and the rest of them in a way that even if that is all that somebody is able to see, they are able to make judgments about the essence of that manuscript. So your abstract has to be properly written. And again, I will defer to the individual sessions for us to be able to speak more on how to write an abstract. Knowing how to write an abstract is an absolute necessity for you to really convince people. Remember, the two abstracts that you were given, you were able to find the differences in the way they were written. So it's very important that the abstract captures the messages. And so the running title is a short title that is part of the alternative pages within your manuscript when it is published, so that short title allows the reader to continue to understand the focus of that particular article without having to go back every time to the first page, because your title is only available on the first page, isn't it? And so if you have an article that has 40 pages, once you flip away from the first page, you don't see the title anymore. So, and let's say you are on page 20, you don't want to have to be flipping back to the first page before you know what the title is. And so the running title will be a shorter version of your full-length title that describes the focus of the manuscript, so that every alternative page, every other page, when it is shown, the reader will be able to see what that manuscript is all about. Now, keywords, I bet it with you that many people, it is just 1 minute to submission that they are thinking of keywords. They feel keywords is just a necessary evil, that they just have to put something there, right? No, don't treat keywords like that. Keywords are very important, and they also help for people to discover your article. And so, people would say that if you can choose keywords by thinking of words within the area of the manuscript that anybody who is searching could likely use to be looking for such an article, but not necessarily the same words as you have in the title. If you have words as keywords that are not exactly what you have already in the title, but similar, you expand the search range and the range within which anybody who is looking for your manuscript will be able to find it. So if you have the same words in your keywords as you have in the title, that means that if anybody uses those words and let's say the words in the title and they cannot find it, your keyword cannot be an additional way of finding it, because it's the same thing that is there. But if you have different words, then you expand the possibility that people are going to discover your article. So think carefully about your keywords. It is not just unimportant, it's quite important. Now, the introduction is the first major part of the body of your manuscript. As the word goes, the introduction, at times it will be called the background. That is answering the question, why did you do the work? So, what is the background to this research? What have people done about it? What is the gap in knowledge that you are trying to complete? Therefore, by the nature of introduction, it will be showing literature references that underpin the essence of that research. So you will have to use citations. You have to quote references within introduction. The introduction has to start with what is the basis, what actually led you to do this research. We spoke about durian having effects on blood flow to the brain. So if I'm going to talk of introduction to that research, I will need to tell what durian is, isn't it? I will need to tell places where durian is found. I will need to tell things around durian that people know or that people have researched. And then, at the end of the day, I will now identify the gap in knowledge. That even though durian has been so long in use by the people of Indonesia, nobody has investigated the effect of durian on blood flow and other things like that. Therefore, the aim of this study is to investigate the effect of durian on the blood-brain barrier, for example. So I have established the existing literature about what has been done, and I have extended that to show what has not been done, and therefore to show why my research is not doing what has not been done, or in some instances why my research is doing better what has already been done but not properly done. Do you get that? So there has to be a gap that you are trying to fill, and your introduction is an opportunity for you to provide a hook, H-O-O-K. You know what a hook is? Something that will keep the reader engaged, that they will not be able to leave reading your article. People are very busy these days. Everybody uses this thing, right? People are easily distracted. If your introduction is boring or confused, too complicated, people will say, oh, this is too tough. And then they will leave and go to do something else. So there has to be a hook. And that is talking about the way you write, the language that you use, and then the logicality. So right from establishing why you did the research all the way to the gap and then the aim of the study. So usually the last sentence or so of your introduction would tell the aim of the study, or if it is hypothesis driven, it will set forth the hypothesis that you wanted to test. Therefore, we hypothesize that durian will have a significant effect on the brain, something like that. And so the introduction is very important, and I always illustrate it also in the context of other things. Is the first time, let us imagine somebody wants to come and explore this room. As they are coming in, if you are the owner of the room, what is the first message that you want to say to them? How will you want them to come into this room and explore it? How will you want to introduce this room to them? Your manuscript is like your world, W-O-R-L-D. You are introducing the reader to your world, the world of your research. What is the first statement that will come out of you to give to the reader? That first sentence has to be potent. It has to be very punchy. It has to be very clear. So it might mean that the construction has to go through several iterations for you to really get there. You know, there are times that you write a statement, you are not just, something tells you it is not yet settled, right? You just don't feel that it's there yet. So you come back to it, you look at it again until it is right. And that is telling you that most of the time, your first version of the manuscript will not be the final version to be submitted. Don't forget that. Some people feel tired. Oh, I've been revising this manuscript and revising. You have to necessarily do that. So it is unlikely that, except you have so much experience in writing, that your very first version is the version that is getting submitted. So you need time to write a manuscript. That is just the brief thing about it. And then you go from your introduction, which states at the end the aim of the study, to say the materials and methods. That section answers the question, how did you do the research? Remember, introduction is asking the question, why did you do the research? Materials and methods is asking, how did you do the research? It is here that you are going to give details of methods. If these methods are known, you can just state them very briefly, but then include a reference or references of those who have already stated the methodology very clearly. If it is a new method completely, you need to write it out in full. One of the things that you need to consider when you're writing your method is, have I given sufficient detail so that if somebody wants to reproduce or replicate my work, they will be able to do so with the level of information that I have provided them. So necessarily, the materials and methods section will be very technical. It will have a lot of information about what you have done, the uniqueness of the things that you have done, about instruments, about measurements, about units, about all of those different things that will come together to present exactly how you have done the work. Now, results, because of our time, is asking the question, what did you find? So what did you find? This is where your data will be presented. And your data has to be described by text. Therefore, your tables and figures, your illustrations are not replacing your textual description of the data. They are complementing your textual description of the data. And therefore, you will have your figures, but you will still use text to describe your figures, and then there must be somewhere within that description where you refer to each of the figures or the tables. The figures must not just be hanging. You are telling the reader when to look at the figure, when to look at the table. So there has to be a place after you have described a particular data set when you say in bracket maybe figure 2 or in figure 1 below, we show that the temperature of so and so rises with every rise in so and so. So you will have to describe the most important data, because journals are now beginning to ask people to cut down on the length of their manuscripts. And so you have to think of what is the most important message, or what are the most important messages that I want to pass across. So, and again, we'll talk more in the individual sections about that. So, your results will not now lead you to the discussion, or occasionally, results and discussion are together. Some journals will require it like that, or the nature of your field will necessitate it, especially in fields where there's a lot of data, complicated, that if you delay until the discussion section, most people will have forgotten what you said in your results. So you want to present the result, discuss it. Present the result, discuss it. But if you are allowed to separate them, then it is still okay to have the results. The result does not interpret anything. It is just stating what you found. It is the discussion that is answering. So what do you think that result means? Your own interpretation of it. Now, because of its nature, the discussion will have a lot of references too, because the discussion will have a lot of references too, because you are trying to situate your findings within the context of existing literature. So what I found was, is it consistent with what people have found before? Is it contrary to it? If it is contrary, can I adduce explanations for why it is contrary? Or occasionally you may say, we do not understand why so and so was the case. And that will be a subject of our further studies. It is not in every situation that we understand fully the phenomena that you have described in your results, remember you are doing a very novel piece of work. And novelty at times means that it is not possible to immediately unravel the reasons why certain things have happened. And so your discussion will have a lot of literature references because you are trying to compare what you have obtained with what other people have obtained before. And again, that discussion will lead you to conclusion, in which case, remember, I gave the illustration of somebody coming to explore your room, to explore your museum. So ask yourself this question: after they have explored and they want to leave, what will be the message that I'm leaving them? The way that your opening sentences are very potent, your closing sentences also must be very potent. Now, in your conclusion, you can describe the impact of your work. You can describe you can even have recommendations either separately or within the conclusion. If your work is about policies, what are you recommending to the government, to the community, and all sorts of things. So the conclusion is about, was the aim of my study achieved? You have to state that. Very important. Remember concluding, and the message has to be potent. Now, the acknowledgement, this is where you give thanks to those who have assisted you to carry out the research by way of funding you, for example, or by way of assisting to an extent that does not warrant authorship, but you still want to appreciate them. Now, the standard practice is, even before you put somebody on your manuscript as being acknowledged, you should let them know. People may not want to be on your manuscript, and they have the freedom not to. So the same way, you will make sure, you ensure that every author knows that they are on the manuscript, then everyone who is acknowledged also, especially when they are individuals, will have to be told that they are being acknowledged. That's quite important. Conflict of interest. These are the potential liabilities that you have based on your various associations that might have impacted the way you conducted the research or the way you interpreted your data. So if you are telling us that tobacco smoking does not cause cancer, because most of us know that it causes cancer, right? So if you find that it doesn't cause cancer, we need to ask you, were you funded by a tobacco company? Because they could have given you money to do some strange kinds of research to find data that says that tobacco smoking doesn't cause cancer. So in that case, you will need to declare that I was funded by so-and-so tobacco company, so that we know whether they have actually influenced your interpretation. Or if you have a company that is selling a product, a commercial product that you have researched, we want to know that you have a share in that company in case that has influenced your results and other things. Supplementary material is about data that is important but not critical. Important to interpretations, but not so critical that if you don't have it, they will not understand your manuscript. So people will still be able to understand the manuscript, but you want to put it there in case some people really want to dig deeper about your data. And then you can put it in what we call supplementary material. That one will be accessible